Fair skies and green pastures, cadets, and welcome to Project Prominence. I am the Commodore in charge of teaching this project, but you may call me Commodore Irish. And today we will begin with the very base of the U.A.F's Navy. The ship for today has dominated the Federation's quick response tactics and has made itself into a staple of our fleet doctrine thanks to its versatility. So I hope you cadets are prepared to take some notes today. After all, the goal of this project is for you to master the arsenal at your disposal. That won't be possible unless you start with the basics. So let's get started. Among the Federation's many ships, there are a few which match the reliability and the versatility of today's topic. Like a bird of prey capable of gliding between both atmospheres and battlefields alike, she's an independent spirit capable of delivering a devastating punch below the belt, as well as the first on the scene when the Federation calls for aid. She represents the strength and camaraderie of the Auroran people and symbolizes the boldness required of them to survive in these trying times. Cadets of Project Prominence, I present to you the Nakiha class frigate. The Nikia class has earned its legendary reputation in the Federation's Navy through brutal combat against all manner of threats that have faced our home on both ends of the Cosmic Gate. However, before we go into that, let's first cover the history and then the armaments of the Nikia. This will allow us to properly understand how it is meant to function in fleet combat and how it excels in its role. First, I would be quite disappointed in any cadet here who has somehow missed the view our Admiralty and civilian population have on the Nakiha. It is, after all, legendary for a reason. However, we will go into this frigate's history to better understand its uses and its drawbacks. So while this may be a review for some of you up-and-coming captains, you better pay close attention. And if you decide that this project isn't worth your time, please let yourself be known so I can whack half a brain into your skull. As what you will learn here will help you to preserve the lives of you and any crew who fall underneath your command in the future. Note takers on the skull whacking? Perfect, then let's begin. To start off strong, there are absolutely no Auroran military personnel who don't believe that the Nikia isn't an exceptional design. Entering its 4th generation design, the Nikia's creation predates the Battle of Aurora, seeing extensive use during the Unifying War. After the war, Urian shipbuilders were rather hesitant to release the design to foreign manufacturers. This will lead to the design and development of a different frigate which we will cover at a later date. At the present, however, the Nakiha-class frigates form the backbone of our naval forces. This is largely because of its capability to perform multiple roles. Whether that's screening for larger ships or forming fast response fleets, the Nakiha-class is capable of it all with their versatility. Some brave captains, as I'm sure many of you cadets have probably seen on holovids, have even taken down enemy capital ships by taking advantage of the maneuverability and torpedo armaments of the Nakiha-class. Its ability to enter and leave or even land and take off from within a planet's atmosphere without assistance from mass driver runways has also played into the ship's longevity in the Federation's Navy. I can tell you cadets firsthand that this functionality played such a crucial role during the Battle for Aurora that it would not be an understatement to say that if the Nikia class lacked the atmospheric capabilities that it has, we likely would not be speaking together today. When the denizens of this sector arrived above our home beyond the Cosmic Gate, the functionality of the Nakiha class allowed it to be simultaneously deployed in conflicts from the stratosphere to high orbit in every altitude in between. This ability allowed for the Federation to deploy the Nakiha as their primary fast response craft, and is another reason why it is so widespread. Space is vast after all, and our cruisers and capitals can only cover so much ground. To further delve into the legend behind this frigate, I'll explain one of the primary reasons why it is held in such a high regard, although it may bring up unpleasant memories for some of you. During the Federation's darkest hour, the Battle for Aurora, we were taken by complete surprise and absolutely outclassed by the enemy's warships. Our capitals and cruisers could barely hold the line to prevent complete access to the planet below. However, despite the heroic efforts of those captains, one enemy capital ship managed to slip through the defense line. What you cadets now know as the Paragon-class battleship was what we believed at the time to be the enemy's flagship vessel. It tore through anything in its path, obliterating any cruisers that tried to stop it, and capital reinforcements that tried to disengage from the front line were destroyed by the enemy's fleet. With nothing to stop its advance, it began to indiscriminately bombard our home. Eventually, multiple rear-line capital ships managed to reach it, and they tried to stop it, and they put up one hell of a fight. But the firepower of that behemoth was too much for their shields, and soon they were reduced to nothing but slag. As the battleship continued to raze our major cities to ash, only a single frigate squadron could disengage from the front line in hope against all hope that they could cancel the apocalypse. The squadron was composed of multiple Nakiha-class frigates, and the fight that they put up was legendary. I'd never seen them move with such speed and grace in their frigates before. You could have sworn you were watching fighters in action, not frigates. It was like watching a dance of some sort with how they evaded the fire at that behemoth and retaliated in kind. And I guess the pressure of the mission made them give everything that they had. I just wish I could see the kind of teamwork that he had with them from last time. Sorry, the squadron's valiant effort to at least distract the Paragon from razing every major city was worth it, but at the cost of their lives. The battleship's thrusters were knocked out by one of the torpedo barrages, and the damage done by this was enough to keep it in place, allowing our ground forces below to constantly harass the now immobile behemoth with missile strikes, preventing any enemy forces from reaching the battleship to repair or support it. This is one of the reasons why the Nakiha class is a legend. As the battle for Aurora would continue in the coming hours, it would soon reach its peak. However, it is thanks to those brave men and women that the enemy was unable to burn every major city on the planet. You cadets will do well to remember the sacrifices made by those sailors whenever you see this frigate, and treat it with the respect that both it and the departed deserve. I apologize for being a little emotional. This frigate is special to me. But as we bring a close to the history and the usage of this nimble and versatile legend, remember this. The Nikia should never be underestimated by her foes, as she may hold a couple of reserved surprises specifically for the oblivious. Unfortunately for you cadets, some of those surprises are beyond your current clearance levels. Once we're near the end of Project Prominence, I might be able to share more. We'll have to see. Now that we've covered the history of this legendary frigate, it's time to cover her weapons, operational systems, and potential loadouts. The Nakiha class is equipped with one medium ballistic mount in the center of the craft, one small missile mount on either of her sides, and 3 small ballistic mounts surrounding her center. The Nakiha has an armor rating of 225, making her able to take a few hits and stay in the fight, and she's not too fragile either with a hull integrity of 1850. These can be altered as admirals and shipbuilders see fit, however these are the standards you should get used to seeing. She's also quite fast for a ship of her size with a speed of 130, allowing the Nikia to evade most capital grades weapon fire and allowing her to pick and choose her engagements, a critical ability for a ship that's often tasked with distracting and pulling away an enemy battle group. This task is where her frontal shields and flux capacity shine the most. With a basic flux capacity of 2000 and anticipation rate of 225, the Nikia has the capability to both take a few hits with her shield and still be able to respond in kind. However, it's critical to all cadets present that the Nikia's primary defense is her speed and maneuverability. The capability to evade most enemy fire is what makes her such an excellent harasser and overall frigate. What this means is that if I catch any of you trying to take on an enemy capital in a simulator head on, we're going to have a very long arse talk on the proper use of frigates. Now before we move on to loadouts and practical applications, I'd like for your cadets to pay attention to the Nakiha's ship system. She's equipped with enough disruptive chaff countermeasures and flares that any missile trying to hit her will be more confused than a pather trying to turn on a tablet. When this flare system is used, the Nakiha will launch these countermeasures in 3 separate directions. This is useful since those 3 directions just so happen to match the directions of our 3 potential point defense mounts. This system has saved the lives of many Auroran sailors, by either giving our point defense systems enough time to shoot down enemy craft and missiles, or outright intercepting the targets on their own. The importance of this system cannot be overstated, especially when the Nikia is operating away from the point defense coverage of fighters or the main battle line, making her a prime target for enemy missiles or fighters. Remember, our point defenses are not nearly as advanced as our adversaries, so this system helps us cover that weakness and further enhance the capability of the Nikia when she operates in groups. As multiple Nakiha class frigates using their flare systems at the same time is often enough to completely scramble the targeting of entire enemy fighter squadrons in missile waves. It's about time I tell you cadets about some of the loadouts commonly used with a Nakiha class frigate. For the first loadout, she'll be optimised for a flanking and harassment role. For this reason, the Nikia will require weapons capable of putting serious damage on smaller vessels while still being able to pressure cruisers with some assistance. Looking toward our first and most obvious solution, we have our two missile mounts, one on each side and capable of mounting either torpedoes or conventional missiles. For those captains who feel confident in hitting a moving target with torpedoes, I would recommend using two of the Amazok kinetic MIRV launchers. These torpedoes deal 800 kinetic damage each, and if you fire and land both at the same time on an enemy's shields, you'll be able to cause them a significant amount of trouble. However, using the Amazok launchers comes with a significant downside that I've noticed in my time using this loadout. That being, it's almost impossible to hit anything smaller than a destroyer. While this can be negated at times, it's really a pain in the arse to watch a torpedo just barely miss a target and continue off into space. Even worse if it accidentally hits a friendly. That has happened several times. It's for this reason that I actually suggest using the Oboe kinetic MIRV launchers instead of the Amazoks. The primary reason for this is twofold. The first reason is that it's capable of targeting vessels of any size with respectable accuracy. And the second reason is that not only does it do significantly more damage than the small Amazok mount, but it has a vastly superior range as well. This is in my opinion the most important piece about the Oboe, as it allows the Nakiha to strike enemies from much further away, making her job of harassment and poking holes in an enemy force's flanks much easier. To put into perspective just how much damage the Oboe does, it is the capacity to deal 1,800 kinetic damage if all of the submunitions hit the target, and that's from one of them. And it does this with a range of 3,500 standard units, compared to the Amazok's range of 1,500. However, that's to be expected as the latter is a torpedo, and as a downside, the Oboe takes much longer to load. Unfortunately, all these added benefits come with costs as well. The primary cost being that the Oboe is quite expensive, both in purchasing the weapon and in mounting it. Coming in at 6 ordnance points, it is tied with the Clarinet high explosive MIRV in cost, and its ordnance point cost is only exceeded by the mini brief launcher, making it the second most expensive small missile you can mount from our arsenal. However, I firmly believe that this is a worthwhile trade for the reliable damage and pressure that the Oboe provides. For the primary weapon in this loadout, I would recommend a weapon that uses high explosive damage backed up by a respectable fire rate. One such weapon that fits that criteria is the Ivory 254mm support. This anti-armor cannon has a range of 900 standard units, and that might seem excessive for a frigate, but when you're harassing much larger ships, you'll want to avoid getting close to them, and the Ivory support helps to do just that. The particular reason I suggest the support version of the Ivory and not the rapid version is that the support has fared much better when engaging both small targets and cruiser-sized enemies. See, there's a flaw when using the rapid version of the Ivory, as its slow rate of fire and decreased accuracy make it more difficult for the Nikia to deal with smaller targets. It also makes it much more difficult to pressure the shields of destroyers, as the mix of high explosive damage and the longer refire delay forcing the Nikia into a more prolonged engagement in addition to being at a closer range, which is exactly what you don't want to do with frigates. For your point defense slots, I would recommend using the Marina one, the 20mm machine gun. With how the Nikia is built, it's easier to use her maneuverability to turn and let the point defense guns do their work. And the flare system is more than enough to remove massive swarms of missiles that your guns can't handle on their own. With all that being said, however, you should have a good chunk of ordnance points left after equipping these weapons. You can spend them as you'd like, but the personal method that I found great success with is to build in advanced turret gyros, expanded magazines, and auxiliary thrusters. That is only if you're going to make the Nakiha specialise for wolfpack tactics and harassment. Otherwise, if you're using the loadout and don't have the capability to build in those hull mods, you'll be perfectly fine with simply putting 7 points into capacitors and 10 points into vents. Overall, this gives the Nakiha a flux capacity of around 3,800 and a flux dissipation rate of 325, assuming you've built in the hull mods. The weapons in the loadout will cost 283 flux per second to fire, so the dissipation rate of 325 should be more than enough for this beauty of a frigate to easily handle what she has equipped. Of course, you could go the opposite direction as well, and replace the Ivory support with a Meldev 254mm support, or Rapid instead, and swap out the Oboes for Clarinet high explosive MIRV launchers. Essentially, you're just switching out which weapons you want to deal armor damage to your enemy with, and which ones you want to overload their shields with. However, there is another design that shouldn't be forgotten about, and that is the escort loadout of the Nakiha. In this setup, a Weiss 2 flat cannon is mounted on the centre of the frigate, then the 3 ballistic slots can either be more point defense, however, I would recommend using weapons like the Kanta 50 cannon mixed with the Claris 50. These weapons may surprise those of you who look down on small ballistic mounts when a medium is available, as they excel at keeping small ships away. Then you can use any missiles or torpedoes of your choice on the 2 missile mounts. However, I wouldn't recommend escorting a capital ship with a Nakiha. While this can work with enough of them, our capital ships are precious assets, and so they should be protected by cruisers so they can be properly defended on the main battle line while being able to make use of their large weaponry. However, if the situation truly does call for it, you can always use the Nakiha to escort. Now onto the part a large number of your cadets have probably been waiting for, practical application. The first thing you should be aware of in regards to the Nakiha and practical usage is that she rarely operates alone. The Nakiha is a frigate, as you cadets remember, which means her arms and armour won't stand up to most of her adversaries on her own. I know it seems obvious to say that a lone frigate isn't that powerful, but I've lost count of the amount of times I've seen admirals bite off more than what they can chew by sending a single Nakiha to attack an enemy's flank alone. This does accomplish creating a temporary distraction and shifting the focus of the enemy battle line, but there aren't any other Nakihas in the group to prevent the first one from being overrun and separated. This leads to the frigate being focused down and destroyed by the enemy's flank. Even with our damage control systems, there's only so many people who can survive that, so pay attention. To further explain why this frigate isn't supposed to be on her own, take a look at her mounts. Her torpedo armaments have the capacity to deal a large amount of damage at once, but unless she has the opportunity to do so, say like an enemy whose flux is near its limit or the one who is overloaded, the full potential of her loadout won't be reached. This is why the Nakiha class operates in squadrons. This can be any particular number of frigates, but most often success, and more importantly survivability, is found in squadrons of 3 Nakihas. This is enough to cause significant damage and disruption on an enemy's flank and helps avoid the risk of one Nakiha being focused down and destroyed before the others can cover her retreat. The added frigates and torpedoes make it much easier for the squadron to attack and bring down cruiser-sized enemies, meaning that they can hold their ground against larger targets while still being a nuisance to smaller ones. It also makes them significantly less likely to take a loss, as competent captains are able to cycle between which frigates are at the front. One thing that I'd like to add onto this is that if you use the Nakiha in a squadron of 3, have 2 of them following one leading frigate. This frigate is what we refer to as the squadron leader. This makes it significantly easier for the frigates to maneuver around without having to worry about getting in each other's way. So remember, always have officers on your Nakihas if you're using them for wolfpack tactics or for flanking attacks. Now that we have a general idea for what loadouts should be used on the Nakiha class frigate, it's time to show you lot how to properly use them. After all, nothing good happens to frigates that go off on their own to flank an entire fleet. So after cutting through a little bit of red tape, I've been allowed to show you cadets some personal footage of these tactics in action. What you're about to see is from my time as an active Commodore on the front. So please save any further questions about that for later and pay attention to the engagement. Here I had a small fleet of 1 Lilaroo class heavy cruiser, 2 Sahichi class heavy destroyers, and a handful of Nakihas. For those of you who are wondering, yes, this was in fact during the first couple of battles over Favonius. The ones where those damnable Pathers thought that they could hit us without much resistance. The enemy had 2 cruisers, a few destroyers, and a hefty escort of Cerberus frigates. Luckily for us though, the majority of the swarm of Cerberus frigates were being held at bay by the La Villa frigates nearby. Without them, we easily would have been overwhelmed. Even with our own strengths, the initial damage and casualty projections painted a dire image. But if we decided to turn tail and run at the first sight of a real challenge, then we sure as hell wouldn't have made it to where we are today, and the shield of the Federation will never back down from the fight for the survival of its people. And so as the distance closed, we let the Lilaroo take the center position of the field with an escort of 2 Sahichi destroyers, while wolfpacks of 3 Nikihas each went to the sides to cause some chaos. I'll let you see how it proceeded to play out for yourself and then offer some commentary afterwards. For now though, enjoy the show. Now that you've seen how the Nikia class operates in her wolf packs, I'll mention something that you might have noticed from the combat footage. The Nikia relies heavily on her missile mounts to help deal damage and to pressure enemy shields. And luckily for us, we had recently resupplied our ammo stores. Otherwise, we likely would have lost many more sailors in that engagement. But as you can imagine, when the Nikia isn't able to make use of its missile mounts, she loses a lot of her power, as you likely saw when the flak cannons of those frigates took out the mirrors before they could make contact or split apart. This is why you cadets saw her in groups of 3, as it enabled the Nikia to quickly overwhelm her enemies with a barrage of missiles, and to also overwhelm smaller targets with her main cannon. As you saw when the missiles failed against some of those frigates, they had to rely on their coordination and take them out with the ivory cannons. If we'd switched around the loadout to be male devs instead of ivories, it might have been a little bit easier to crack the shield on the cruiser, but hindsight is 2020 and you don't always get to make those decisions sometimes, especially with how fast these battles can begin. What you should take away from the footage that you saw is that while the Nakiha excels in her role of a harasser, she truly shines when paired with the U.A.F's cruisers and when the main battle line is sturdy enough to give her a place to fall back to. And if you recall what the goal of Project Prominence is about, you may realise why you are seeing this footage in particular, so I'll just get out with it. This combat encounter showed a direct comparison between how the Nakiha class operates in groups of only frigates, and how she operates in tandem with larger warships while in her own group. This should ring a few bells, as the entire goal of this project is to slowly demonstrate and explain to you cadets how the true strength of our navy comes from mixing together the different tools we have at our disposal. As you saw in the footage, the Nakihas were able to help stem the tide of frigates and destroyers, but thanks to the battle line created by the Lillaroo and her escorts, the Nakihas were able to fall back and switch positions as needed, allowing them a great deal of flexibility. As we draw to a close on today's subject of Project Prominence, I believe all you cadets have either learned something new about the legendary Nikia, or have a better understanding of her functions. And while I would absolutely love to have you all here to talk about the Federation's cruiser doctrine, we only have a limited amount of time to speak today. However, the next part of this project will be a less structured addition to today's subject, where we go over more specific strategies and loadouts for the Nakiha. Unfortunately though, I'm afraid it's time for me to take my leave, as the fleet is trying to contact me. Thank you very much for listening. This is Commodore Irish instructing you on Project Prominence. From over the azure skies and emerald plains of our new home, live long and prosper, cadets, and I'll see you next time. Oh boy. I guess we're finally at the end of the video. Wow, this is taking me a while. Thank you everyone for sticking with me and waiting, and I apologize, I'm not the greatest at picking up work on occasion. But first of all, I want to say thank you to my friends who give me a lot of encouragement when making this video. It's the first time I've ever attempted something like this, and I was very nervous about doing it. I hope you guys can forgive the little mistakes that pop up every now and again. I'm still very much new to this whole editing thing, and seriously, how the hell do some people do it? Like, I see Mactor's video, and I'm like, what kind of crack is this man on? Secondly, thank you to everyone in the Ashes of the Domain server. The past months have been an absolute blast, and I'm very much grateful to have met you all. Seriously, you frickin' hooligans are amazing. Third, I want to extend my gratitude to the U.A.F. development team for making what is absolutely one of my favorite Star Sector mods. I look forward to continuing this series, and hopefully you guys are alright with me being a goof and role-playing while I'm showcasing some of the great work that you've done. Lastly, thank you for watching. I hope this video was a good mix of information and amusing for you guys. I'm not the best at this, and I'm still a beginner, so I hope you'll stick with me as I improve and get better at this. Here's to one hell of a journey ahead of us, eh? Have a great day or night wherever you are, and I hope you enjoy the bloopers. Green skies and fair pastures, cadets, and welcome back to Project Prominence. Wait, that's the wrong order, it's the other way around. Fair skies and green pastures, oh god. As we bring a close to the history and usage of this nimble and versatile legend, remember this. The Nakiha should be underestimated by her foes, as she may hold a couple of reserve surprises specifically for the Oblit Blade. Should never be underestimated, not under... This is the 7th fucking take of this paragraph. Cadets of Project Prominence, I present to you the Nakiha class frigate. Wait, wait, fuck, no, not Nakiha. What's this?
Nakiha.
Oh, I'm stupid. Its ability to enter and leave, or even land and leave from drivers, but... It's 3:30 in the morning, what am I doing? I like how I'm trying to do the accent, and I'm like trying to do the best to do my practice for it. And then I see in the zone chat on KSR server, Waifuzization beam! Go! They turned the fucking blue beach ball into a waifu. Send help. Facer, how the fuck do you keep finding me on every platform by accident? Get out of my supplies. Fred has already ate all of them. Please, leave some for the fleet. Apparently it's 4 in the morning. I was not paying attention to time when working on the project, and so now I'm eating a bowl of mac and cheese at 4 in the morning. So yeah, this will probably be a blooper somewhere.